to love, or should we call this ready to lie? Because this after season of Ready to Love, it's a big mess, y'all. But now with all these after interviews, another one done by Little BlackBook, I'm telling you, we just find out more and more and more dirt, and it ain't good. Some of these folks need to stop doing interviews. Stop doing interviews, especially Clifton and Joy. Y'all need to sail off into the sunset. Stop trying to clear your name, because really all of this is ridiculous. It really is ridiculous. The truth of the matter is, everybody knows now that this is a game and you got to stay on the show. So we all know that Clifton was using Thekia to stay on the show. Joy needs to accept that. She don't need to be embarrassed. She don't need to be going after Thekia. Nobody needs to be going after Thekia because Clifton used Thekia. Clifton can admit that he kissed Thekia, because we all know he did. We've had corroborated evidence by a lot of people. He don't have to keep lying to Joy. He need to just tell Joy, hey, Joy, honey, this is what I had to do to be with you. This is what I had to do. Look what I had to do. I had to kiss Thekia and make Thekia think I really liked her in order so that I could stay on the show and I could be with you. And Joy needs to say, I thank you. You know how many times my husband has sent me up to a counter at a hotel front desk or any place to ask for something, because he says, you'll be able to get it better done than me. He says, smile at the man at the counter and be nice. Please, we all have used our mates to get extra favor in life. And Clifton used Thekia, and Joy needs to just be good with it. Don't let your pride get all out of whack, because we're hearing about all this nastiness and backstabbing and snide remarks and everything that was going on in the background just so Joy and Clifton could protect their love. This wasn't worth it. It really wasn't worth it at all. But anyway, we're going to get into this Little BlackBook, because there was a couple of bombshells dropped. First of all, I don't know if you guys saw my last video on that. I done figured out what Paul's strategy was to stay on the show this long, because I was wondering how did he stay on the show. And if you watch my last video, I'll leave a link to it above my head right here. I figured out that the way Paul lasted was he was the one that was going around and poisoning all the ears of all the other women so that they would break up and vote men off. That was his strategy. Everybody else's strategy was to make connections and that their connections would vote for them. Paul's strategy was to break up connections so you would vote people off and he'd be the last man standing. Well, it worked. And from this Little BlackBook interview, thank you to Queen Revolution. I saw that and heard that Sabrina told the story that it was Paul who delivered to her the news that Donovan was plotting with Carmen some type of plan to make it to the end. And it was that seed that watered something in Sabrina's head that made Sabrina stop distrusting Donovan. It wasn't that Sabrina might have had other things, but it was also the watering of that fruit, the watering of that seed. I ain't gonna call it fruit because it ain't fruit. The watering of that seed of what P.O. did that helped break up Donovan and Sabrina. And I'm gonna get to that, but that's very important. Go back and listen to my interview. I think people have overlooked Paul. They need to go back and realize that Paul was in the middle of a lot of this mess. One thing I like about Little BlackBook's interview is he really does go deep. Now, his interview was 3 hours. Y'all can watch it. I ain't gonna lie, I didn't watch the whole thing because I ain't got 3 hours. I watched some of the beginning and I watched some of the end because some of the really good stuff was at the end as well. But what he does is he really does get the guests to go back, open up, and you do really learn a lot more about them. You learn about them past. Now, I'm going to talk about Miss Sabrina because I saw the comments rolling in the little chat when he was on the YouTube. And Sabrina don't want a bunch of people over. Sabrina done bit a lot of people again. And I want to reiterate for the record. I wish I had a sign. I hold it up. I do not dislike Sabrina. And I'm going to tell you, Sabrina is so good. When you listen to Sabrina, I'm telling you, all along with all of you, I can sit and I can nod my head and I can agree with Sabrina. When Sabrina is telling a story of other people, listen to what I'm saying, other people, and describing their behavior and what they did, oftentimes I sit and I nod in agreement with Sabrina. The only time I diverge from Sabrina is that she pulls herself out of the mix, but when she's inserted, she has no blame, accountability, nothing she did wrong or right. So hear what I'm saying. She is very good at pointing out what other people should do, shouldn't do, and what could have done differently. Where Sabrina misses the mark for me is she doesn't talk about what she could do differently. So oftentimes you could just sit there and not in agreement with Sabrina. And I think that's what happened in this sort of interview that she did with Little Black Book. But now I know where it comes from. Sabrina told a really heartwarming story to me that really opened herself up and talked about how she was raised. One of the things that resonated that Sabrina talked about was how she always felt she had to be the strong one. She always felt she had to do the answers, that she was the one that never really asked for a lot of help. She was the one that a lot was always expected for. So she always had to be right. She had to be on point, and she had to be sharp. And this was not only something that she felt was put on her maybe by family members or whatever else, but it's a role she grew into. And what she said was she's been in therapy. She's even talked about it with her sisters. And her sisters have said, well, it seems like you actually like that role of being right, being the number one, being up on top. And Sabrina says, well, parts of it she may like, but she also talks about the burden of it. And I actually really understand where Sabrina's coming from. Now, here's where I'm going to pivot. That actually explains who Sabrina is out in the dating world. When you have that level of expectation to always be the sharp one, the smart one on top of the game, what it does is it puts more risk on you to be wrong. So you actually want to avoid being wrong at all times. And when you don't want to be wrong, you know what you also do? You don't take accountability. Because if you've grown up always feeling as if being wrong or not being number one or not being sort of the top dog, if you're not there, that's looked upon as being less than. If that's how you grow up, you avoid that place at all times. Because that's actually what I see about Sabrina. And then not only that, what you do is you tend to have really, really high expectations for yourself. And then you impose those high expectations on others. And the truth of the matter is, the people you're imposing those expectations on, it doesn't mean that they are of poor quality. In fact, not only should you lower the standards for them sometimes, you actually need to lower the standards for yourself. And that's what I'm going to say to Sabrina. I'm going to say to Sabrina, I really like what I heard, but I know you said you're working with a therapist. I would love for you to explore, how do you impose the expectations that were put on yourself? How are you imposing those same expectations on other people, including your partners? Because that is what can create in a relationship someone feeling out they could never measure up to your standards, and you're actually doing to your partners what was done to you in your earlier years. So that's my Sabrina speech. So let me get into this Sabrina tea, because I want to talk about that too. So Sabrina actually tells us a whole new story. I'm going to call it a whole new story because to me it is a new story about how she fell out with Donovan. First of all, if you recall Sabrina's original story of why she fell out with Donovan. Her original story of why she became less interested in Donovan was because what she said was she felt that Donovan was too soon out of her marriage, only 3 months, and he was out here trying to run the streets, and therefore he wasn't really serious and ready to love because he hadn't had enough time to heal. She sold that story out on the corner. Not only did I bite on it, so did Tommy. Tommy bit on it and said, well, Sabrina, we don't understand why you would say Donovan wasn't ready to love because he was only divorced 3 months, but you were too only divorced for 3 months. So remember, that was her whole premise for discarding Donovan was because he wasn't ready to love, he was playing games, and he only had been divorced for 3 months. And that's why I called Sabrina a hypocrite, because I said, Sabrina, if that's your reason, then you are just out of divorce as well. So why would you impose those standards on Donovan when the same situation applies to you? Sabrina then says, as a result of Donovan only being out of a relationship for 3 months, and she believing that he wasn't ready to love, she rejected him. When she rejected him, he became angry. And what he did was he told Demetrius the secret of the kiss. Sabrina says she rejected Donovan because she didn't think he was up to par. She chose Demetrius, and then Donovan tried to poison the well with Demetrius. Demetrius got hurt, angry, and upset. And then he still asked her to meet the mother or the aunt. And Sabrina said, no, I don't want to meet your aunt now because you have poisoned the well with your aunt for me. And so therefore, she decided to self-eliminate. In this story, Sabrina tells the story where she chose Demetrius consciously because she no longer desired Donovan because she believed Donovan was too soon out of a marriage. That was Sabrina's story. I questioned the story because I was asking, well, if Demetrius was your first choice, I don't understand why you still wouldn't meet the aunt. She said it was because he poisoned the well with the aunt. I didn't believe that because if you really like someone and you just told us that a kiss meant nothing with Donovan, I never understood why, even if Demetrius had told the aunt that, why you couldn't tell that same story to the aunt. Why couldn't you have told the aunt, hey, this is a dating game. We go out with other people. We kiss other people. It really means nothing. But in the end, I'm choosing Demetrius is who I want to be with. Why didn't you just tell that story to aunt? Because you know what? We all sit here and we feel okay with that. I believe she could have told that same story to the aunt. That's why I never believed Sabrina's real story. Well, I should say that wasn't the real story. I never believed Sabrina's original story. Now, with this interview with Little Black Book, I believe Sabrina came with more of the truth. I believe Sabrina has been taking a hit out here in these interviews, and I think she decided to come to this interview with Little Black Book, and kudos to him for opening her up. She decided to give more information and open up and fill in some blanks because that story she originally told, I wasn't buying it. Now Sabrina tells another story. The story she told on Little Black Book was that there was a square between Carmen, Donovan, Sabrina, and Demetrius. Carmen approached Sabrina saying, hey, you and I need to get together and we need to decide who's going to be our number ones. Is it going to be Donovan for you or Demetrius? I believe that story because that type of story of that backdoor conniving and chess plan was been told by a lot of people about Carmen. And I knew that was Carmen from the very beginning. If you watch any of my videos, I said Carmen is in this to win and she will do what she needs to win. And in fact, Carmen has said plenty of times that she's competitive. So I don't even think that's up for debate anymore. Sabrina also tells the story that it wasn't just a small kiss with Donovan that she had. It was a full makeout session. She explained of a really sexy bar scene they had, and they was tonguing it up. It wasn't no peck and kiss. It was a makeout session. They made out in the bar. In fact, the makeout was so steamy that people in the bar came up to Sabrina and Donovan and told them that stuff is sexy. So let's get that straight. It wasn't just a small kiss. Then she says they made out at the car. And then they said they had a small pet kiss later on at the retreat. So we've gone from a small, inconsequential kiss to it's not small and inconsequential, Sabrina. That was the first thing. It actually was a kiss that had a deeper, more meaning to it. That's what I believe. And it wasn't one kiss, it was several kisses, as Sabrina says. Not only did Carmen start telling Sabrina she needs to choose and they both need to choose, she said there was a point in time where even Donovan came up to her and said, hey, you're going to need to choose or the choice is going to be made for you. Sabrina says she became suspicious over Donovan at this point because what Donovan was saying started to sound just like what Carmen was saying, as if Carmen and Donovan were somehow in cahoots. Now here's when Messy Boots Paul comes in. I told you, Paul is the person that pushes women over the edge to want to get rid of a man. Paul then comes in and starts telling Sabrina that he overheard in the room next door. So here's Messy Boots Paul with a glass up to the door or down on the floor with a glass to the floor, listening to conversations. He's messy. He is real messy. he decides he's going to tell Sabrina that he overheard Donovan and Carmen talking and that they were plotting about how to make it to the end. Listen, this is then what raised Sabrina feeling uncomfortable with Donovan. So it wasn't that Donovan was only 3 months out of a marriage and she thought that wasn't enough time to heal. Nope, that ain't the story. The story is she was starting to feel like Donovan was playing her. Hear what I'm saying, people. Sabrina started to feel like Donovan was playing her. But here's the thing. She then says she believes that Carmen was Donovan's number 2. I do agree with that. I believe that that kiss that they had in that bar and all that chemistry they had, I believe that Sabrina was Donovan's number 1. But Sabrina didn't start to feel comfortable with that fact. Because if she had really believed that, she would have known that Donovan was going to choose her. I don't think she was secure in that Donovan was going to choose her because she started to feel like he was playing a game. I also believe that Donovan was Sabrina's number 1. It wasn't Demetrius. And that's what's going to explain the way she treated Demetrius in the end. Because it was Donovan who was her number 1. All that chemistry she had with Donovan, Donovan was going to be her top choice. But she got scared and uncomfortable when she started to hear about what Donovan may be doing in the background and was playing her. That when you think about the secret of the kiss that Sabrina kept for Donovan, saying that she was doing it for Donovan, that's a conscious decision to keep Donovan's secret, as she says, as opposed to having loyalty to Demetrius. That right there tells you where her heart was or where her loyalty was. She had more loyalty to Donovan than she did to Demetrius. That's another reason why I think Donovan was her number 1, because her actions showed that she was more loyal to Donovan. I think Tori got substituted with Demetrius, and then Donovan came in and leaped over Demetrius. When Demetrius had that thing with the friend and the submissive, Demetrius got lowered to number 2 position. That submissive thing with Demetrius made him fall in the rankings, and it helped Donovan rise. Once Sabrina started feeling uncomfortable with Donovan, it is then she decided to go back to Donovan and say, hey, do you hear about what's going on? And Demetrius said, I don't care about this or anything. I just want to be with you. Demetrius was consistent all the time. The funny thing about it is Demetrius has taken a lot of heat out here. But the truth of the matter is, the more and more stories are told, he actually is one of the more upstanding persons on this show. He reminds me more of Ace. He wasn't out here playing any games whatsoever. And for some reason, he's taken a lot of heat out here. And I think he shouldn't be taking all this heat. When Sabrina decides to pivot back to Donovan, I do believe that what she's saying is Donovan was then upset. And Donovan then says he's going to also tell Demetrius about what happens. I still don't agree that Sabrina could be completely mad at Donovan because you know what? She still participated in the kisses and she still was untruthful to Demetrius. This also explains why Sabrina self-eliminated, because the truth of the matter is she didn't really want to be with Demetrius. Demetrius became the fallout plan because she no longer saw a future with Donovan. Let's be real. That's really what happened. Demetrius was the fallback plan because Sabrina's first choice of Donovan didn't pan out because she didn't trust him and she felt that he was playing her. If Demetrius was really Sabrina's number 1 and she really wanted to be with him, I don't see why she couldn't have sat in front of that aunt or that mother and said, just like Sabrina talked about in this whole season, what's a kiss? A kiss is nothing. That's what you're supposed to do. Then I would have taken that same energy and I would have sat in front of that aunt and I said, this is a game. It's a kiss. We darn near 40 years old. What's the big deal about a kiss? And I would have told her and I would have sailed off into the sunset with Demetrius if that was my number 1. But it wasn't her number 1 and we know it. But like I said, the interview was long. It was good. If you have time, I do suggest you listen to it. Sabrina gave a lot of background on Joy and about their rift and about how that's been going on all season. We've seen some of this joy energy. So I can believe a lot of the stuff that Sabrina was talking about. And like I said, it's not that Sabrina doesn't always speak some truth, but a lot of times she just absolves herself from any wrongdoing in the situation, or sometimes slants the story so others look bad and she looks good. But the truth of the matter is everybody out here is doing it. And now we see Joy is doing it, Clifton's doing it, Paul is doing it, Donovan did it, Carmen did it. Everybody is doing it. So to me, they all in the same boat. But that's it, y'all. I'm signing off on this season. I guess we'll just have to wait to Ready to Love Miami when that's going to start. Talk to y'all later. I hope I see you on some of the other videos which I review. Bye.